Well, boys and girls, we're back for another session of Agatha All Along. Are the episodes going to get worse or are they going to get better? The answer to this question is yes. You'll see what I mean at the end. At the start of episode 6, we get to see Goth Kid was actually called William, and he recently went through his bar mitzvah. And I know I shit on this show a lot, but it was nice to see a tasteful scene showing this ceremony. I feel we don't often get to see non-Christian religious ceremonies on the big screen from big media, and it was nice to have a scene showing the significance of religion on a young individual. No cringy music in the background, no terrible comedy moments, no well that just happened dialogue, just a young man embracing his heritage. What I'm trying to say is that I think it's good, and you should appreciate me being kind while it lasts because I'm going to shit on the rest of this episode. Apparently at this party he coincidentally had his fortune told by Lilia, and due to the bizarre nature of his future, she ended up creating a sigil and placing it in his jacket, the one which causes witches to struggle to remember him or find out any information about him. Why? What is a palm reader doing at a Jewish bar mitzvah? Wouldn't this kind of stuff be seen as deeply sacrilegious and against what they believe in as a culture? In fact, I know it is because I took 10 seconds out of my day and actually bothered to find out before putting it in my big budget Marvel project I'm getting paid tens of thousands of dollars to write. So yes, this is a massive contrivance. As they are driving home, William and his family watch the events of WandaVision unfold and the hex shrink, causing them to get distracted, not noticing the car that is for some reason just casually driving on their side of the road and causing their car to crash. This then causes William to die, but his body to be inhabited by Billy, one of the fake children that Wanda created, which leads to the question of, what the fuck? Billy is not a real person with a soul, he's a figment of Wanda's mind. There are versions of them in the multiverse, but her version in the show wasn't real, just tied to the hex that she created, the hex that she then destroyed and freed Westview from. Meaning that by extension the Billy, Tommy and Vision there were erased as she has stopped casting the spell. So considering that he's not a living being and therefore wouldn't have a soul, and his essence was destroyed by Wanda, how can William be possessed here? On top of this, Billy's existence couldn't go beyond the hex, as we saw with Vision. So there's no way any part of him could come all the way along to this car. It's stupid, it's dumb, it's only there because the only thing this show has going for it is speculation theories over Wanda. Also, Alice is just here now. I find it contrived as shit that she would be the one to come and help out of all the police we've seen drive by, but whatever. William now has amnesia and can apparently read people's minds. 3 years later, and when he's with his boyfriend, he explains the sigil and how it works, showing us that he was lying about his knowledge on sigils all the way back in the first few episodes. How convenient that in the 3 years we didn't get to see any of his life, he just somehow learned all of this knowledge about witchcraft and spells, despite the first few episodes showing he has no real connections in the witching world. He and Eddie managed to track down and help someone who can tell them about what happened in Westview, which turns out to be Ralph Boner. Ralph has become crazy and paranoid after the events of WandaVision, with him explaining the events of WandaVision and how much of a horrible person Agatha is. He also explains Wanda's fake family, and that Agatha is still in Westview under the spell Wanda put on her. William realizes that he's actually Billy, and then we get a scene that's just full of coincidences. He finds a random website that literally explains everything he needs to know about Agatha and the Witch's Road, while the song plays on in the background, allowing him to realize he can find Agatha and reach the Witch's Road to get Tommy back. Like, come on, you couldn't show him slowly building this research up over the next few days at least? You're just going to have him literally have all the information he needs in a few Google searches. Information that doesn't really make sense because why would Agatha be sitting down for photo shoots? He then drives to Westview and goes to Agatha's house, finding a personal item of hers to try and free her from the spell, which he succeeds in. It also gets us to see the opening detective show from the perspective of the Goth Kid, as well as hearing his identity when Agatha questions it. We then arrive in the present time and see that Billy destroys the sigil, and he admits to Agatha he knew about how to destroy the sigil, while she reveals that she knew he was Billy Maximoff and that's why she's been protecting him. How does she know this? She says he has a tell, but as we'll learn in the later episodes, this doesn't make any sense either. So yeah, the reason why Agatha cared about him this whole time was because despite him not looking or acting like Billy from WandaVision, despite not resembling or acting like Wanda in any way, and despite not being able to give any details about his life to her, and despite the tell not being apparent until after episode 2, she just knows. Could you be any more fucking lazy with a reveal like this? Especially once we get to the ending of this series. Also, yeah, Agatha is back. She just crawls out the mud and back onto the road, no worse for wear. It was established established before that you need to stay on the road or there will be consequences, and based on what we find out later, they should be dire consequences. But no, Lilia and Jen are just transported to somewhere entirely, and Agatha can just walk out onto the road again. Agatha encourages him to always try and take power when he can, and then persuades him to work with her to complete the road and free Tommy, ending the episode. Despite the promising start, the majority of this episode is just nonsense due to trying to link the plot and characters with the plot and magic world building of WandaVision. The idea of what is essentially a real-life Sims character being Goth Kid feels really forced. Most of the character development for him is just skipped over when we really should have seen details of him learning witchcraft and knowledge, instead of just skipping 3 years and saying that he just knows everything now. Episode 7 opens on Lilia falling, and I thought it was really funny because you can tell in the first scene that she's actually just lying down on the floor waving her arms at the camera trying to pretend she's scared. It's just a really funny way to shoot this shot. Back on the road, Agatha tells Billy he can ask her questions if he's curious, and he asks the question of where's Rio? And you know what? That's actually a good question. She just isn't with the group anymore once they pass Agatha's trial. She disappeared all that time ago and no one really brings it up until now. And when it is brought up, Agatha just says she isn't answering that question and to ask a different one. Now, we'll learn later that she's up to some other ulterior motive, but why she chooses to just disappear from the group and just not pester them anymore is a serious issue, I think, especially once you find out what her main goal is. The topic of Wanda is brought up and Billy says that she isn't his mother, and the discussion of whether she's alive or not is brought up, with Agatha being unsure whether or not she really did die. Thanks Marvel for the key jangling. It's not like you've got much else going for yourself at the moment. They reach the next trial and it's something to do with tarot cards, which both of them don't really know what to do and they fumble badly, wishing that Lilia was here. Lilia and Jen are in some sort of underground cavern system, and in this place her kooky episode seems to be happening more often, and as she tries to talk to Jen we see her travelling back through her past to try and warn people, showing us why she was seeing those things in the previous episodes before travelling back to when she was a little girl. Her mother asks if she is travelling and she confirms it, before Lilia slips back to the present. She explains to Jen that time is an illusion that most people struggle to view past, but for people like her it can make life hard because she can just jump around her life at random and she can't control it. All of a sudden Lilia jumps into the trial, where Lilia threatens Billy before remembering that Billy was at the bar mitzvah. And then she tries to pull a sword out of the seat and you can tell it's a rubber one and it looks really bad. They pull the sword out and throw it on the floor and there's no metal clashing or anything, you just hear the rubber bounce off the floor. As Lilia tries to solve the trial, she is sent back to the past again, where her mother chastises her and tells her powers are not a curse but a gift she must embrace. She then appears back in the cave, which leads them to the trial. And we get an absolutely awful joke here where Lilia asks who the queerant is and Billy says that he's the queer and I mean, come on. He's gay, I understand. When you have your character in a life or death situation, you don't need them to be making random out of nowhere gay jokes just to remind the audience that he's gay. We know, you said it several times throughout the series. It just comes across as pandering at this point. As they start to play, Billy asks if he is William or if he's Billy, and as she starts to play the cards once again, she travels back into the past. She talks about how her powers are useless as even with her knowledge, she could not prevent her coven from dying, with her mother saying that this is just a natural part of life and she should use the time she has left to do something good before she dies as well. I quite like this scene, to be honest. It adds a lot of depth to Lilia's character and links all of the previous times throughout the show when she had one of her random moments. Lilia ends up at the start of the cave and wakes Jen up, telling her that Billy is the son of the Scarlet Witch and that they need to reach the trial, before they then need to hide as the Salem 7 randomly show up. And I do mean randomly, they're just walking around in this cave with Jen and Lilia when really they should be on the surface because that's where Agatha is at this moment in time. Lilia says that she is going to go deeper into the cave and hopes that Jen will join her, seeing her as a sister witch. And while I don't mind this development, I feel like it could have been built up a little more. It certainly helps Lilia's arc at the end, but it just kind of comes across randomly here. As they start to travel into the cave, Lilia transports back to the tarot reading, where she realizes that she needs to be the querent in the tarot game, placing the cards that relate to her life before once again appearing at the start of the cave where the two of them first fell. During this time, when Jen is unconscious, Rio appears in the cave with Lilia and reveals that she is the actual physical embodiment of death. As the group pass the trial and Lilia tells them about Rio, she ushers them through the escape door before closing it behind them, leaving herself in the trial room, aware that she is going to die and trying to delay the 7. As the 7 arrive to fill up the room, Lilia flips the Tower tarot card upside down on the board, sending herself and the 7 into the sword-covered ceiling, killing all of them before we see child Lilia running to meet her mother in the garden, where they will have their meeting that we've been seeing throughout the episode. You know what? I would say that this is probably the best episode of the series so far. Sure, there's some issues with the plot, there's still a lot of annoying dialogue, and I genuinely cannot believe that this show has been hyping up these bad guys only to just casually kill them all off, which makes me wonder what was the point of even including them in the first place. But overall, the personal stuff was nice. Lilia's character arc actually just kind of works, as it manages to integrate her journey here with all of her past scenes to form a strong narrative of a woman who is losing track of the limited time she has, and so she chooses to use it as well as she possibly can despite knowing that the end is near, simultaneously showing us how her journey begins and ends. And overall, there's not a lot of bad world building introduced in this episode, it's very well self-contained. I was actually hopeful that now that these bad guys are out the way and the character roster has gone down significantly, that maybe we could get some actual character development for Jen as well, and that the rest of the episodes would be able to keep this momentum. But unfortunately that's not the case, so I'm gonna have to say that this is the best episode of the series. And despite episode 6 being the worst so far, it's going to get a lot worse from here. Thanks for watching, lads and lasses. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing and checking out some of my other videos. Sharing always helps, and if you're feeling really generous, please consider my Patreon or YouTube membership. I also have a Twitter and occasionally I do live streams. But most of all, I just hope you had a great day, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.